Hello YouTube, I'm Scruffy at Scruffy Tales, and this is the War Zone. And with the release of the trailer for a recently upcoming movie, Civil War, taking place in the United States when the country falls apart to inner turmoil and conflict, I figured I would take a look and try and figure out who the factions are fighting in this movie. And the trailer tells us that we have 19 states that are trying to become independent from the United States and break away from the Union. And as it happens, we get a brief look at the US map in the trailer here, a television set being reflected in a window. And what we see is how the United States and the individual states are split into different factions. And going by what we are told in the trailer, we can identify three factions with a potential fourth. We have a three-term president, who is the president of the United States. Then we have the Florida Alliance, and of course the Western forces of California and Texas that are relying on military force to break away from the United States. And zooming in a bit and flipping the image around, we get a better view of the United States and the different factions and where they are located. So we have the states loyal to Washington and loyal to the United States of America in light blue. And we also have the Florida Alliance in a darker shade of green. And as well in the purple, the Texicali faction. And then we have up in the northwest a potential fourth faction, or maybe more than likely another part of the Florida Alliance, as they seem to have the same color as the states down by Florida. So this is how the United States has been divided in the movie. Alaska and Hawaii seem to be allied with Washington and still loyal to the United States of America. And of course, we have the Florida Alliance potentially being spread out to the northwest and southeast. And then the touchy subject of the Texas-California alliance here, the Western forces bringing guns to the discussion. So as far as I can figure it, I've listed the states that are still loyal to Washington and make up the official United States of America in the movie. And I suspect that they support an independent president, not a Democrat or a Republican. I think this third-term president is an independent who has gained traction by being a successful individual, selling his own name and building up a following surrounding himself rather than policy or politics. I think they will go down that route to not further fuel the polarization that we see in the US. So they kind of bring Democrats and Republicans together to fight a fascist dictator independent president, I think. And somehow this president has managed to get himself re-elected for a third term. And this is what causes the eventual divide in the US. And taking a look at the Florida Alliance, I believe these are the states that have aligned themselves with Florida. And I'm suspecting that the Alliance is created in direct response in opposition of the president gaining a third term, and they probably support a different presidential candidate that is the lawful president and not the guy that just grabbed a third term. And my guess is that for the plot of the story in the movie, the Florida Alliance, they're trying through diplomacy and peaceful means achieve change and get the president and his followers to understand that the law of the land, the rule of law, demands that the president steps down and allows a new president to be in charge of the country. And then we have the states in the Northwest. Not sure if they are a faction unto themselves or if they are part of the Florida Alliance. I think they may be part of the Florida Alliance. Funny thing is, they mentioned that 19 states rebel against Washington. I only count 16 and 18 in total if we count in California and Texas. I probably missed a state somewhere. I'm, as you probably can tell, not American, so I may have done goofed it a bit in locating the states. So if I missed one, please let me know in the comments. But I think that this part of the United States is part of the Florida Alliance within the movie. And last but not least, the big talk of the town, the Texas-California faction, in the movie referred to as the Western Forces, indicated on the map in the movie with the purple states here. Quite clearly a separate entity from the Florida Alliance, as seen by being represented with different colors on the map, as well as the flag in the trailer, more than likely representing the two states of California and Texas having joined together into the Western Forces. And obviously, this is what everyone's been talking about. What, Texas and California joining forces against Washington? That's ludicrous. If there's a civil war in the United States, clearly these two states will be on different sides and fighting each other. They wouldn't join up because they're too different politically and yada, 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 yada. However, I do believe that it does make sense in the setting that they will provide us in the movie, at least, for these two states to join up and join forces. Now, I believe that this may be the plot line, so a potential plot for the movie. And that is that the Florida Alliance is a political or peaceful movement that tries to leave the Union, or they simply support a different presidential candidate and are in opposition of the would-be three-term president. And I don't think it's gonna be all that strange that if in the movie the Florida Alliance is in actuality a coalition of states that have voted for either Democrats or Republicans, and they are now in opposition of an independent fascist presidential candidate. And the reason for this could be that instead of trying to fuel the polarization in the United States that may lead to an actual civil war, in the movie we can see Americans, Democrats and Republicans, come together to together fight the real enemy, the people that are trying to bring down the United States from within by providing a bunch of false narratives that riles up everyone and pits them together. So I think that might actually be what will happen, because the states that are either supporting the president or the Florida Alliance, that's a mixed bag of Democrats and Republican states all across the board. And obviously we have the extreme version of that being California and Texas joining hands. So I think that is probably what's going to happen. We have the Democrats and the Republicans joining forces to try and fight a fascist president in the White House. So what will propel the plot forward? Well, either the United States and Washington intends to maintain the Union at all costs with military force, as the Florida Alliance tries to break away, or the three-term president simply refuses to step down, and the Florida Alliance, they ramp up the rhetoric and things escalate from there. And I think it is at this point, within the lore of the movie and the setting of the movie, that Texas and California, who historically have very strong support within their own populations for independence, within the strong support that these two states will actually become sovereign states and independent from the United States. It is at this point that they break away from the Florida Alliance as they seek to, with lethal force, occupy Washington, D.C., and by so doing gain independence from the United States. And just take a look at history. Strange bedfellows is nothing strange in war. Far from it. And the saying, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, has been proven to hold true in basically every conflict in human history. So that's why I don't think the California-Texas alliance is all that strange, to be honest. They can't leave the Union on their own, and the only way forward is to join forces and force Washington to accept defeat, and then California and Texas can become independent and become their own sovereign nations, and then they can do whatever they want as they wish down the line, and their alliance is at that point over. And as Texas and California eventually breaks away from the Florida Alliance, this is when they become the so-called Western Forces, a military branch born from the Florida Alliance, intent on achieving the alliance's goals by forceful means instead of the peaceful diplomacy attempted by the alliance, and thus the Civil War begins. And in the trailer we see several different armed factions or representations of different combatants. We have tanks, we have Apache helicopters, we have Humvees and MRAPs and everything, indicating the U.S. Army being involved, obviously, and we also see the U.S. Fighter jets bombing American towns and what have you. And so what happens with the U.S. Army, with the U.S. Air Force in a situation like this? Well, evidently in the trailer, part of the U.S. Armed Forces remain loyal to Washington, and I assume that other parts will be loyal to the alliance and become alliance forces, just like we saw in the real Civil War between the North and the South. Then we have all the National Guard units. Are they loyal to their states, or will people there as well split between the alliance and the United States? Who knows? It's going to be a mishmash, and the United States will not be the only faction here controlling heavy-duty weaponry, because part of the armed forces will more than likely break away and align themselves with the alliance forces. And then you have all the militia factions that are spread throughout the United States. Who will they side with? Are they loyal to Washington and the president, or are they loyal to the Constitution and the alliance? I assume the Florida Alliance will be pro-constitution in this movie. Could be wrong though. So you have these thousands of militia groups armed to the teeth. Who will they side with? Or will they just be, random rogue elements that are that are profiting from the chaos of this war in this movie? Who knows? One faction that I do feel will be uh, part of the bad guy group of the movie will be the guys wearing the Hawaii shirts. Because as I understand it, they represent a movement within the United States that basically has been preparing for a decade or two for a real civil war. Boogaloo enthusiasts, in other words, and they have in the past shown up wearing Hawaiian shirts, almost like their uniform to separate them from other factions and other groupings. And since these guys appear to be very much based on real life groups and a subculture in the United States that are very much preparing for a civil war and that have in the past, historically in real life, been a disruptive part of the United States, a disruptive subculture that they are prepping for war, a civil war. I think because of that these guys will be part of the bad guy team, the bad guy side in the movie, probably chasing the heroes, the journalists around. And as we are told in the trailer, journalists are shot once if they enter the capital. So it may be that the Boogaloo Hawaii shirt guys, they are actually controlling Washington and they are chasing the journalists around in Washington D.C. We'll see what happens in the movie, but I'm leaning towards that possibility. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how all these multiple armed groups and factions within the United States are portrayed and how they split between the various factions that we will see in the movie. Well, that's it. Not much else to add. A brief look at the factions that the trailer have provided. Like I said, I think the movie will try and heal real life America by making Republicans and Democrats the good guys, and also having California and Texas joining forces to defeat a fascist dictator in the White House. So we'll see what happens in the movie and in real life. And if you're American watching this, the trailer does ask an important question. What kind of an American are you? See you around.